Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Trustee Compass?
Here.
Trustee Reardon?
Here.
Trustee Rashevsky?
Here.
Mayor Peacock?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the April 4th, 2022 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of April 4th, 2022.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
2022 playground renovations purchase and installation.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to approve the use of HGAC by co-op contract PR 11-20 and accept the proposal from Landscape Structures Incorporated titled Orland Park Playground Renovations 2022 for the purchase and installation of playground equipment and associated site work for an amount not to exceed $985,423.02, which is $966,101, plus a 2% contingency of $19,322.02. Second.
Would you like to show us this really quickly?
Okay, thank you. Yes, just a quick overview of the village's playgrounds. The village has a total of 66 parks, and in these parks there are 56 playgrounds and 46 pavilions. The average age of these playgrounds is 19 years, and the typical lifespan of a playground is about 15 years. Orland Park does average one playground per approximately every 1,100 residents, while the average community across the country averages one playground for every 3,859 residents. So this is a great amenity for the residents, which requires maintenance and renovations. So in 2019, a park assessment was performed. Prior to this assessment, only 6 playgrounds were renovated between 2013 and 2019. So using the park assessment study as a guide, 10 playgrounds were renovated the past 2 years, with half of each playground being completed in 2020 and the other half in 2021. The full scope of work included new playground equipment, new engineered wood fiber mulch, improved edge restraints, new site amenities, and accessibility improvements per the Americans with Disabilities Act. This year, staff has recommended the renovation of 6 entire playgrounds. These 6 locations were based on geographic location and size of the parks. Now, public outreach was a key component in finalizing these renovations. Postcards are sent to 1,291 residents who live within 500 feet of the 6 parks. Postcards also contained a QR code which linked them to more detailed information. A survey was also posted on the village website for residents to vote on the 2 options that were presented. Upcoming park improvement signs were also put in place of all the 6 parks, and the Rec Advisory Board was also part of the public outreach process with an initial meeting on March 1st, and then followed by a final meeting on April 5th where the survey results were presented and final recommendations made. I have individual slides of the 6 parks if anybody would like to see them.
And Brian, really quickly, I'd like to point out, we get a lot of emails and a lot of things sent to us that we ignore the eastern part of town. So we hear that all the time because the western side of town has been built more recently as a whole. As you can see, our parks program, actually the bulk of it is over in the eastern part of town, but it is all throughout the town that these parks have been renovated. So we focus solely on which parks are in the worst condition and which needs to be fixed, and we don't really worry as much about where they're located. Obviously, as big as our town is, you do enough projects, it's going to be kind of spread throughout town, which is exactly what's happened. Does anybody want to see the pictures of the parks? Anybody?
Okay, otherwise, any questions could answer if you have any.
Any comments? So I just have a couple. So some really key points here with our parks. We have 3 to 4 times as many parks as similar sized towns throughout the country, as Brian pointed out. And previously, the boards, if you go back to the beginning of like 2000, 1998, we were fixing 1 park every 2 years. You know, since in the last Last 2 years, we fixed 10, and we're getting 6 more this year. So we've really changed how we're doing things, and that started in 2019 when we assessed the parks, which we're doing that assessment again as well next year or this year? Park assessment.
I think next year.
Next year, right. So we're doing that again next year, and we'll re-rank everything and do the same thing again. We also doubled our investment in our parks. Additionally, as you recall, we renovated John Humphrey Complex, which that was blocked prior to 2019 as well. This wouldn't have been possible, I just want to point this out, without Mike, Cindy, and Bill. Because when they got here, we immediately did this within the first month of them getting here, because I knew this was a problem. It wasn't getting addressed, it was being blocked, and we changed the way the previous board operated. So we've been able to really make progress on our parks and our infrastructure, so thank you to the 3 of you, and thanks to all 6 of you for continuing that forward. I appreciate it. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Heavy-duty vehicle purchases.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the Village Board the use of Sourcewell contract number 060920-PMC for the purchase of 5 single-axle Peterbilt 548s for an amount of $600,596 per quote dated February 25th, 2022, plus a 10% or $60,059.60 contingency for a total not to exceed the amount of $660,655.60, and to approve the use of Sourcewell contract number 060920-PMC for the purchase of 1 tandem axle Peterbilt 548 for an amount of $140,809.20 per quote dated March 9th, 2022, plus a 10%, $14,080.92 contingency for a total not to exceed the amount of $154,890.12, and to approve the use of Sourcewell contract number 080818-HPI for the purchase of 5 Henderson Mark E dump bodies, each with a plow package and FSH V-box spreader installed on a single-axle chassis for an amount of $631,560 per quote number 159889 dated March 22nd, 2022, and to approve the use of Sourcewell contract number 080818-HPI for the purchase of 1 Henderson Mark E dump body with a front and wing plow package and FSH V-box spreader installed on the tandem axle chassis for an amount of $158,214 per quote number 160200 dated April 7th, 2022.
Second.
I'm going to go through that one really quick.
I'm going to defer, if you don't mind, our fleet manager can speak to
Sure, absolutely.
vehicles. Okay.
So we currently have 19 Sterling single axles, and they are dated back to 2001. So the average age of the Sterlings are 19 and a half years old, and they have an average hours of about 3,600 hours. Going forward, we believe that this sets a standard for the village. It's pretty much top of the line. Peterbilt is known for reliability. As of right now, we have Sterlings and Internationals with 3 different engine types. We have no standard for our fleet. So we feel that this sets a standard, a very good standard that we can use going forward. The V-box inserts will make sure that the dump bodies hold up over time, so we can use those, for other village projects throughout the year. And it's just it's a good setup going forward.
Any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Healy?
when it comes to pricing and all that stuff, I know when you buy a car now, you trade your used one in and you get a fantastic price if you can sell it. Do we consider selling these trucks used, or you want to use them for other purposes?
These, I would say, would be long-term investments.
I mean the current ones.
But they're replacing the ones that they're...
Oh, yes, yeah, we would be selling the current ones.
And we should be getting a pretty
Yes,
fair
yes,
price for them,
especially
too, so...
right now, with the current market, we should be getting a very good price.
Okay, that's...
And they're all well-maintained, they're in good shape, so we would be getting a good price.
All right, thanks.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Reardon?
is there some sort of advantage doing this all at once? I mean, I'm just trying to think of the budget impact if we're selling them over time or we're buying them all at once, or we're getting some sort of a better deal?
So with the current environment, we're rolling 2-year purchases into one. So we're doing the 2023 purchases this year. 2024 will see new diesel emission standards, which will increase chassis cost $15,000 to $20,000 per chassis. So that's another reason why we should roll in the 2023. Also, we probably won't see any of these chassis until the end of 2023.
Backlog and delay of
Backlog,
everything,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and as you recall, we rolled 2 years worth of vehicle purchase. So this goes back to, the average age of the trucks here are 19 and a half years. Our whole fleet basically had no plan, just as everything else you've seen in the village had no plan before I got here in 2017. And so one of the things we've been doing, parks, roads, buildings, now in vehicles, is having a plan for how are we going to get back on track, because we're so far behind on our capital, obviously 19 and a half years on the trucks. And so we have a 5-year plan to get caught up, as you recall, Trustee Reardon, from I think right around the time of the budget meetings, we had that. So we have a 5-year plan to get caught up on all our vehicles. And then we also approved 2 years worth of spend because of the fact that we can't get certain vehicles and we don't know which ones we can get and which ones we can't get based on the supply. So we're buying them all this year, and some of them are going to end up being delivered next year. So that's why we did that. And again, this is just good planning for us to actually have a 5-year plan to how we're going to get back on track, so that then we can have a regular pace going forward, whether it's our parks, whether it's our roads, whether it's our vehicles, and not defer that and leave it to future boards to have to deal with like we're doing now. Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
2022 Road Improvement Program Construction Management Award.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to recommend to the village board to accept the proposal from HR Green, Inc. of New Lenox, Illinois for the 2022 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program Construction Management for amount not to exceed $284,800.
$264,000.
$264,800.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Why don't you go ahead and show this now, and it'll handle each of the next two.
Go through the road
Yeah, go
program?
through that now. It'll handle it both of the next
Okay.
two.
Okay, so just want to give a quick recap of the 2020-2021 roadway improvement project. They were either, we had pavement resurfacing or full depth pavement reconstruction. We also mitigated sidewalk hazards and reconstructing sidewalk ramps to make sure they are ADA accessible. We also do curb repair and replacement to restore positive drainage. We install also pavement under drains where they're warranted. We do tree trimming throughout each neighborhood as well as make storm sewer repairs where needed. In 2020, we did 10.6 centerline miles, and in 2021, we did 11.7 centerline miles. So for the proposed 2022 road improvement program, we'll cover 7.8 centerline miles, which is down this year due to the increase in costs and the fact that most of the roads this year are full depth pavement reconstruction, which costs substantially more. 27 vendors downloaded at least one of the RFP documents. 9 vendors downloaded all of the documents. Then 5 bids were opened on April 8th. This year, the decision was made to issue the Neighborhood Roadway Improvement Program under an RFP, which enables staff to evaluate more than just the lowest price. Based on the RFP process, staff is recommending PT Farrell.
Okay, go ahead and leave that up. Any questions or comments on the engineering portion of it? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
2022 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program Proposal Award.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Radiszewski.
I move to recommend pursuant to the village's power and authority as a home rule municipality under the 1971 Illinois Constitution that any requirements for competitive bids under Section 8-9-1 of the Illinois Municipal Code and any and all bidding requirements set forth in the Orland Park Municipal Code be and are hereby waived for the 2022 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program, and that the village accept the proposal for the RFP 22-030 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program from P.T. Farrow Construction Company of Joliet, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $5,297,343.91.
Second.
And Brian, could you just give us the rationale? I mean, I know it's only $18,700 roughly, or $18,600 between M&J and PT Farrow. Could you just let us know why that decision?
Sure. Staff, with the RFP, there were multiple criteria we looked at, which were price was one of them, vendor qualifications, financial responsibility, responsiveness to the specifications, as well as past experience with the proposer. So staff did find that M&J was not responsive bidder because they didn't provide a technical proposal, which was one of the criteria. Also, past experience with M&J was not as good as we would have liked. They did have the 2019 asphalt maintenance and patching contract, and that did get pushed into 2020, so they did not finish that on time. There were some parking lots and the bike paths languished behind. There were some shallow patches that were left unattended that resulted in some vehicle damage. And then also the traffic flow on 94th Avenue was flipped without advance notice to Public Works, and we received numerous complaints on that. One other item, we're talking about vendor qualifications. M&J does not have their own asphalt plant, which staff feels is important on the magnitude of this project, where you have to be able to control the production for your project needs. So we graded them slightly lower on the vendor qualification criteria. So that's where our decision was rendered.
Any comments from the board? Questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Healy.
There were no, you mentioned some negative points about MJ Asphalt, but for PT Farrow, it's just nothing but good, or have they had some falls along the way?
No, they've performed, they had the project in 2018. They also did 3 projects in Fernway. They also did the 151st Street reconstruction. I previously worked with them where I was previously in Mokina and had nothing good experiences with them. So staff just ranked them higher. They have their own asphalt plant. So they just ranked slightly higher than M&J.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Reardon.
Tell me a little bit more about this, having your own asphalt. And how, I mean, has that been an issue at all with PT Farrow? Because I don't know how it works specifically. Do they need to get product from other companies as well to have it on site so it's available? Or have they always been on time and had stuff available for us when we needed it?
They've always had availability.
Okay. So they plan it out when they do these projects, I'm guessing, to make sure they have enough on hand to handle these types of projects?
Correct. With their estimators, they make sure they have enough product on hand coming in, for production for the daily basis.
If you had to say what the big issue was here, what was the big issue for making the decision? I mean, I know you just laid out all kinds of different things, but what's kind of the big? Is it the asphalt plant that's the big one?
I'd go with the asphalt plant. I mean, with this type of quantity coming in, I mean, be able to control your own production.
I just look at it knowing supply chain issues everywhere. Having your own plant, obviously, makes me feel a little bit more comfortable for something of this magnitude. I mean, and we're not, we're talking about a fraction of a % difference here, which we would pay for much more if we end up not getting it done. So,
Correct.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure we completely flesh that out. So, any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
I abstain. I have a family member that is an employee of one of the bidding companies.
And Mayor Peacock.
Aye. Motion carries.
Fiscal year 2022 budget amendment number 3 approval.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend an increase in the general fund expenditure budget in the amount of $220,797, an increase in the Recreation and Parks Fund expenditure budget in the amount of $443,532, and an increase in the Recreation and Parks Fund revenue budget in the amount of $183,079, an increase in the Water and Sewer Fund expense budget in the amount of $1,211,049, and an increase in the Capital Projects Fund expenditure budget in the amount of $2,865,130, as detailed on the fiscal year 2022 amendment number 3.
Second.
And just as a summary, Jim, most of this is rollovers from last year, correct, Kevin? And then what's the net on the general fund expenditures? I think it was about $100,000 is the net?
For the general fund, it's $80,000.
$80,000, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I know we threw a lot of numbers out there, so $80,000, and that's a combination of what we've agreed that we needed to do with the lifeguards, plus the offsetting revenue changes that we're making as well.
And also some other equipment for police department and their camera program.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
An ordinance amending appendices A and B to ordinance number 5676, Second Amendment ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend adopting an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending Appendices A and B to Ordinance Number 5676, Second Amendment.
Second.
And this is all to just change our salary ordinance to reflect what we just did with the budget. Any questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Debt Service Program, consider issuing 2022A general obligation bonds.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend borrowing $11.127 million for governmental spending and $9.151 million for water and sewer projects as part of the Series 2022A bonds.
Second?
Can you go ahead and start with the presentation? I guess I'll start with the commentary of, what is this for? So this is for the water meters that we're changing them all out at one time so that we don't have to do it over an 8-year period like we've done in the past. So that's what we saw, I think it was last board meeting. And then also for the Centennial Park West and Schuessler Park projects. And obviously there's some money set aside as well, which is why we're not borrowing the full amount. And the reason why we're doing it all now, and I think we're going to see that in the presentation, is because interest rates are going up and we're going to do the projects anyways. So we made a decision as a board a couple of months ago to start this process. And even during the process, I think it's gone up about 150 basis points or 175 basis points. So you're probably going to tell us it's going to go up more. So it makes more sense to do it now than waiting till next year when we'll pay more for it. I'll turn it over to you to give us all the bad news about how interest rates are going.
Go ahead and move ahead. So this chart we've shown you before, just a reminder of what the two data points are. You have the Fed funds rate is the gray area, which has just started to begin an increase on the far right. Of course, the expectation is for additional rate increases this year, probably at 0.5% in May. And those increases are expected to continue throughout the year into 2023. Now, the market doesn't move when the Fed raises rates. The market you see increases in the market as in anticipation of those rate increases. What's really important at this point is the narrative when the Fed raises rates, what they say in between meetings, and any signs to what inflation might be doing over the near term. Last week, when the CPI report first came out, it was a tick higher than expectations, but in the core data, it was actually showed that maybe inflation was coming under control. We saw improvement in the market for a couple of days in a row, but that momentum quickly faded, and now we've seen interest rates begin to increase at the end of last week going into this week. Just a reminder what that blue line is. That's an index called the Municipal Market Data Index. It's a muni bond index we use to monitor trends in our market. So The far right side, you can see the precipitous increase that we've had since January. As I mentioned when I was out here in February, it seemed like people came back from the holidays and began to worry more about inflation in the Fed. And we've just seen a relentless increase in rates seemingly each week. We'll have some moments in time when they slow down, but then it just begins to pick up again. Now, if you were to bisect this chart in half, you would look at that far right line. You'd see it's kind of in the midpoint in the last 10 years. If you look at the last 20 years, it's still a historically lower rate, but not nearly as low as we had when we sold the bonds at the beginning of last year, and then even when we sold the bonds at the beginning of this year. So if you want to go ahead and transition to the next slide. This just gives you a better idea of what's happened since the beginning of 2020 when we had the quick market dislocation when COVID first hit, and then things improved rapidly. So far this year, as I've already mentioned, rates have moments in time we'll see they'll stabilize, even go down a bit. That we see where they went down a bit. That's when the Ukraine war first started. A little bit of a flight to quality. That didn't last very long as the price of oil started to skyrocket and everybody's attention turned back to inflation. So we'll go ahead and transition to the next slide. So the plans for 2022, much of this has already been discussed as to what the purposes are. And 10 million of it is for general government borrowing for the Park and Centennial West projects. Some of that is money that, some of that projects will be provided for with funds that you already have on hand. About $500,000, and that comes from the
5 million.
Sorry?
5 million.
5 million.
5 million from ARPA dollars.
ARPA funds. And then we have to add to the project fund from earlier this year because post-issuance we made a change in how some of those funds were allocated to make payment for this year's budgeted debt service payments. So we have to replenish that fund with about $760,000. And then $4 million for the stormwater portion of the project. So about roughly 15 million of it is related to the park improvements. The reason why we're segregating it is the $10 million portion is identified to a different source of repayment. We'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide here. The $4 million for stormwater improvements will come from the water, sewer, and stormwater fund. And then, as was already mentioned, $5 million of it is for meter replacement. Go ahead and transition, please. So the portion that, the 10 million plus portion is be paid out of this identified revenue stream that we established in the presentations at the end of 2020 going into this financing in 2021. That's roughly $3.9 million. That $3.9 million consists of property taxes, home rule sales tax, and just general government revenues, and that represents the red line. So that's the current target. Now, this could change over time as you reallocate and prioritize the revenue streams of the village, but this is what we're targeting to fit these general government borrowings into. So the blue bars represent what already exists, which consists of some bonds and some installment loans placed with BMO that were done a few years ago. The light blue lines represent this proposed financing. The orange represents untapped borrowing capacity within this $3.9 million revenue stream, and the green is reserved in the event that we need that to cover some of those TIF payments when they come due that year. If those green bars aren't needed for the TIF payments, and that frees up for other capital funding. Okay, go ahead and transition then. So what's the remainder of the, you can flip back one slide, I forgot the colors now, the yellow area, thank you. So the yellow area, which is currently not assigned to any specific capital, that amount translates to about $15 to $17 million worth of capacity for other capital projects that would be part of your capital planning in 23 and 24. If you need to do more than that amount, then we would have to look at the revenue resources available from the village and see if the red line could be increased by allocating, a few $100,000 more each year. But all that will be fleshed out in the capital planning done throughout the remainder of this year, which I know administration will present later. Okay, go ahead and transition now. I think you can skip to the next slide too. So this is the water and sewer fund, water, sewer, and storm water fund. And there's going to be more on this when the rate study is presented to the board in the coming month, I believe, right? Yeah. And so the red line represents the revenues available for pay-as-you-go debt service. That is the current amount that's shown in the draft of the study. It hasn't been finalized yet. So the payable out of this fund is a mixture of debt obligations that you owe to the Oak Lawn regional system. That's the dark gray. Now that consists of loans that are already outstanding and pending loans, that IEPA loans that the regional system is planning to do. The gray area in the background represents just a placeholder, because the thought is the debt service of that regional system probably won't go down as time goes on, but it may, but we didn't want to make that assumption. So we just held that line constant, filling that in with that light gray area. The blue is the current debt payable from the water and sewer fund, water, sewer, and stormwater fund. And then the the green is the proposed 2002, 2009 debt service. So 2022, I'm sorry, through 2029 debt service is a series of financings that are set forth in the rate study. So a portion of that is the water meter replacement and the $4 million for the park project. And then the orange represents pay-as-you-go capital. So that will fluctuate each year depending upon net revenues available, identified capital needs over time. You notice when the orange exceeds the red line, that's when you'll have to dip into some of the fund balance in that water, sewer, and stormwater fund. But in the analysis that you'll see in the rate study when it comes out, there's certain years where it's below that red line, so you'll be adding and subtracting from fund balance depending on what those pay-as-you-go capital needs are. Part of the goal, again, is to plan for, so you don't have to borrow as much. Build in more of your capital on an annual replacement so you don't have to incur as much interest expense and financing costs. And that's what the orange represents.
So, just so everybody's aware, there's roughly $7 million a year in capital projects that we'll be able to fund ourselves, and then also, as we know, we've been hit with some. It goes back to what we talked about before with, vehicles and buildings, and so we have the same thing in our water and sewer with our ponds, with Tinley Creek, as we all know how much that project was originally going to cost, and now it's double that, and it could have been done in 2014 for that cost, and now it's 8 years later, and now we're paying double that, and we have to eat that cost difference. So all those things that we're playing catch up on is part of what's driving this. But again, we have a nice plan to make sure that we're in a steady state going forward, which is the goal.
Go ahead and switch to the next slide. So what is the proposed timeline? So the village board would need to sign off then on proceeding with this plan of finance. An ordinance would come before you on May 2nd for consideration to approve the sale of the bonds that we described. And we anticipate the sale to occur in mid-May with proceeds to be received by June 8th. Now the estimated rate right now that we've factored into the analysis, I believe, is right around 3.75%. It might be up to 4% by the time you sell. The process is moving along as quickly as possible to get to that point. Just as a little bit of context, the bonds that we sold at the beginning of 2021 were, I think, somewhere around 2.25%. And the ones earlier this year were slightly over 3%. So the cost of capital is going up as reflected what you see going on in the overall capital markets when it comes to borrowing rates. You're seeing that in all markets, corporate market, treasury market, and then also, of course, in the mortgage market. Mortgage rates are at one of the higher points they've been in a while. Any questions about this or on the timeline or anything else in the presentation?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Bergen?
Yeah, just to confirm, I think it was said already, but you predict that 6 months, a year down the road, they're going to be well above the numbers that you're talking about for June, or early May, right?
Well, predict's probably a little bit too strong of a word, but yeah, the anticipation is that chances are greater that they'll be higher down the road. And one of the calculations that we did for the administration, which your questions prompted me to provide, is If by borrowing now, you're borrowing roughly 6 months in advance of when you really start to need some of this money. So the question is, how much can interest rates go up between in the next 6 months to essentially pay you back for that additional interest expense you're paying? Now, I guess the silver lining in these rising interest rates is they've really risen on the short end of the curve. So while you'll be paying a higher interest rate, you'll be earning a much higher interest rate while you're waiting to use that money. And that calculation, I believe, is somewhere around 0.2 to 0.25%. So if you believe that rates will go up at least 0.25% in the next 6 months, you're better off doing it now than waiting. So it's not a whole lot of risk that you're taking doing it now versus waiting.
Much better said than what I meant by my point, but that's what I was getting at.
Okay.
Is that there's no downside now because of holding on to the money and using and paying it off longer over a longer period of time.
Yeah, unless you're very bullish on the news on inflation turning around fairly quickly, the war in Ukraine ending quickly, bringing on oil prices, all those types of things, that could slow inflation, that could cause rates to come back down. I don't think most of us expect that to be the news cycle over the rest of the year.
And we're not looking at necessarily 6 months from now, we're looking at a year from now, actually, in borrowing, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Healy?
If, let's say we sell the bonds at 4%, at what, there's nothing stopping us from refinancing if they ever dip down.
Yeah, it would be a period of time, that you wouldn't be able to refinance them. So the go-to analogy I always use when I'm talking about refinancing is, our home mortgages. If people do a home mortgage now, maybe 2 years from now might get a lower rate if we indeed go into recession. Municipal bonds are one of the areas that's different than a home mortgage, is that there's a period of time which you can't refinance your bonds until you get to the optional call date, which is usually about 9 years after issuance. And so for a period of time, you'd be paying a higher interest rate, but you would have the opportunity at some point in the future to refinance those to a lower interest rate, depending on what market conditions are at that time.
Okay, thanks. And one more question would be, I think we talked about there'd be that we're beating the supply to the rush to the market. Are we still beating everybody to the market, or is it?
Well, with the rise in interest rates, we've seen the amount of supply has gone down quite a bit. I mean, the strategy worked really well earlier this year to get into the market and get that issue sold. I mean, that strategy proved. There's a lot of discussion with the board and administration. Well, should we just wait and see if the market gets better? Well, anybody that would have waited at any point in this year would have been worse off by waiting. And so I think you're not necessarily beating supply to the market at this point, because supply is coming down because the amount of refinancing has just dropped off the cliff. It's more or less trying to get in if you believe that the trajectory for rates is to move upward.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. There's no visitors signed in. Is there anybody here to speak at the committee of the whole?
Nope. Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor. Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Okay, the committee of the whole is adjourned. You want to roll straight into the board meeting? Any objections to that?
Now you're good, mate. Stack.
Okay. Wait for you to get back.
Can you hit stop on that, please?
Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy. Here. Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Malani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon. Here. Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pico.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the April 4th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustee meeting of April 4th, 2022.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Earth Day and Arbor Day proclamations.
So today, proclamation, Earth Day, Arbor Day 2022, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate temperatures, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the Village of Orland Park has been recognized as a Tree City USA for 34 years by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, I, Keith Pecaw, Mayor of the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day and April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the Village of Orland Park, and urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our environment and promote the well-being of present and future generations. Thank you very much. And I think I'm the only person on the board here that's ever been a certified arborist, and I was for almost 20 years. So, obviously, we all like our trees, and so I encourage you to plant them and care for them, and also consult an expert as to what trees to plant in what places, so you don't plant 100-foot trees underneath power lines and things like that we then have to deal with. So, good planning there will make for much less maintenance and much less cost for yourself. Next.
Monarch Butterfly Day proclamation.
Monarch Butterfly Day 2022, whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species who from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans, and whereas 25 years ago more than 1 billion eastern monarch butterflies migrated to Mexico, but by the winter of 2015 only 60 million made the trip. Whereas cities, towns, and counties have a critical role to play to help save the monarch butterfly, and the Village of Orland Park has played a leadership role by establishing 2 monarch wayfinding habitats at the Village Hall Green Roof and Stellwagen Farm Prairie, and participating in the Monarch Village USA program. And whereas every citizen of Orland Park can make a difference for the monarch by planting native milkweed and nectar plants to provide habitat for a monarch and pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, and play. Whereas on behalf of the people of Orland Park who have already joined me in creating a healthy habitat for these magnificent butterflies, I am honored for Orland Park to be an official Monarch Village USA, and I encourage other city officials across the nation to take a stand with me so that the monarch butterfly will once again flourish across the continent. Now, therefore, I, Keith Pecaw, Mayor of the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April 30th as Monarch Butterfly Day in the Village of Orland Park, and urge all citizens to support efforts to protect the monarch butterfly and promote their well-being for the benefit of present and future generations. Again, thank you very much. Monarch butterfly plays an important role in our habitat, and I do encourage you to plant flowers and the like that bring, butterflies, hummingbirds, all of those types of pollinators are great for our environment. And if Mother Nature could please help us out by warming the place up just a little bit, I think we'd all appreciate it. I'm getting a big nod from Marissa over there.
Proclamation honoring Hobbytown USA as Orland Park Business of the Month for April 2022.
A A Village of Orland Park proclamation, a proclamation honoring Hobbytown USA as Orland Park Business of the Month. Whereas Hobbytown USA has been an Orland Park staple for 17 years, and whereas husband and wife team Steve and Kim Noel opened Hobbytown in 2005, they built a business from the ground up. Whereas Steve wanted to be in control of his own future, his wife Kim inspired him because she had a faith in him to risk everything to make the business work. They have worked side by side for the 17 years they have been in business. And whereas Hobbytown sells fun, they sell a diversion to the everyday. They have 17 great employees that are ambassadors to the hobbies that the business represents. The goal is when you walk into Hobbytown, you're greeted from staff that are knowledgeable and passionate about what they sell. Steve has accomplished that goal by having a great management team and helpful staff that makes getting involved in hobbies an enjoyable experience. Whereas Steve's greatest struggle through the years has been advertising, he learned early on that word of mouth is the best advertisement. In recent years, social media and attending hobby events also have played a big part in their success. And whereas the one thing Steve said he would change during the early years of owning this business is that he would have taken more risks and not been afraid to grow. Now, therefore, I, Keith Peacock, Village President of the Village of Orland Park, Illinois, in the counties of Cook and Will, do hereby extend the gratitude of the entire community to Hobbytown USA Orland Park for serving the community, and hereby proclaim Monday, April 18th, 2022 as Hobbytown USA Day in the Village of Orland Park. Congratulations. And I will add that, small business, people following their passion, and small business people starting a business and taking that risk, and now there's 17 employees. That's the backbone of America. It's half of our employment are small businesses, and it's no different here in Orland Park. I know we see chains, and we see retail chains, and we see restaurant chains, and that's what we hear about all the time. But there are thousands of small businesses right here in Orland Park that are just like this. So congratulations for all your hard work and all of your success. Now I get to come give you a plaque.
No, it's not in. It's two of them. I've got a network here. And I got to read my accounts payable. Oh, of course.
We were very honored to be nominated for this. We spent quite a few years in the village and businesses. This has really grown. We were not COVID at first was really hurting us, and then it became unbelievable. We've grown just a huge amount, and it's allowed us to expand our business, move to a larger location, hire more employees, and it brought a lot more customers to us. And we said we do sell fun. In your everyday life, find things that will occupy your time and get your mind off every day. So I ask you a question, what are your favorite hobbies? Mine would be our spirit kids.
Cool.
And everything you see on 107th of the Brains Road, you ever wonder where those all come from? We're a very large supplier of those types of things. So if you have that opportunity to come and see us, you're welcome.
Cool.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments? Okay. Go ahead.
The Joint Emergency Telephone System Board appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Eric Rossi to the Joint Emergency Telephone System Board.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pica.
Aye. Just so everyone knows, it's a replacement interim Chief Rossi for Chief Mitchell, since Chief Mitchell's no longer here. And I will swear him in at a later date since he's not here tonight.
The Veterans Commission appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Tom Dubelbees to the Veterans Commission.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Reshevsky?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. And Tom, you want to come on down and we'll swear you in? Those are Rossi's. Those are Rossi's.
Okay.
Yeah, those will be. So Tom's been through this before. He's gotten sworn in a few times. In his retirement, he stayed very busy between the interim village manager and sitting on our Veterans Commission, and right now on our Rec Advisory Board as well. But there was an opening on our Veterans Commission, unfortunately, one of our members passed away, and Tom really wants to be back on that because he wants to spend a lot of time on the monthly care package that we put together. So that's something our Veterans Commission is really involved in. I can't thank you enough. You've been a good board member, you've been a village manager. You're an Orland Park guy that really puts Orland Park first and dedicate a lot of time to it. So thank you again for spending on more time. I know this one isn't me asking you, this is you, Lonnie. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Tom Healy, having been appointed to the office of the Veterans Commission in the village of Orland Park, in the counties of Cook and Will, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of the Veterans Commission. The Office of the Veterans Commission. To the best of my ability. To the best of my ability. Welcome aboard. Sign them up. Thank you. Thanks again, Tom, and you're a dedicated public servant, and I'm glad we can have you join something that you really want to do for you and for the village as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
may I just say something on behalf of Mr. Dubeldies?
Yes.
I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Dubeldies during the Veterans Golf outing. He is a man of passion, he's a patriot, and worked so hard to make sure that event was a success. So the recipients that received the donations from the proceeds were able to do their projects. So I'll never forget his dedication, and he cracked the whip on all of us volunteers.
That's for the business.
Yeah. This is for the business. Hobby Town, they left without it.
Ready?
Yep.
Accounts payable approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the accounts payable from April 5th, 2022 through April 18th, 2022 in the amount of $3,078,512.96.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reshevsky?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda, and it's a long one. It's largely because we've had two committees of the whole that were long, because I hate having them that are quite this long, but most of these items have been discussed at the committee of the whole. Item A, payroll approval. Item B, rock salt purchase proposal. Item C, playground renovations, purchase and installation. Item D, heavy-duty vehicle purchase. Item E, road improvement program construction management award. Item F, neighborhood road improvement program proposal award. Item G, camera license equipment and server purchase. Item H, Konica Minolta multifunction printer lease. Item I, Dell personal computer laptop and monitor purchase. Item J, monument sign 11351 West 159th Street approval. Item K, Spur 2 water main easement at Liberty Elementary School. Item L, Lauterbach and Amon staffing agreement amendment. Item M, an ordinance amending appendices A and B to ordinance number 5676, second amendment ordinance. Item N, temporary finance manager staffing services. Item O, fiscal year 2022 budget amendment number 3 approval. Item P, HR leave administration services, professional services agreement renewal. Item Q, Queen of Hearts raffle license.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I request to remove item F from consent and move to approve items A through E and items G through Q.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Item F.
Do we need to move separately for F?
Yeah, item F, 2022 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program Proposal Award.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to approve pursuant to the village's power and authority as a home rule municipality under the 1971 Illinois Constitution, that any requirements for competitive bids under Section 8-9-1 of the Illinois Municipal Code 65 ILCS 5/8-9-1, and any and all bidding requirements set forth in the Orland Park Municipal Code be and are hereby waived for the 2022 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program, and that the village accept the proposal for the RFP 22-030 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program from P.T. Farrow Construction Company of Joliet, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $5,297,343.91, and authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
I abstain. I have a family member that is an employee of one of the bidding companies.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Agenda Initiative, Board and Commission Member Replacement.
And before you motion this, you should change the word approve to recommend.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to recommend removing Scott Casper from the Board of Trustees of the Village of Orland Park Police Pension Fund, as well as the Village of Orland Park Ethics Commission.
Second.
Before you enter in discussion on this, I have a few comments to make. So Mr. Casper made several statements, as did the people working for him, that he was forcibly removed from his position. To be clear, I have not removed him, and the board has not yet officially recommended for his removal either. They invited him to speak tonight. I do not see him tonight. So all the board can do is recommend, and last week they moved it to the main board meeting to have that happen. So that's all that happened. As I pointed out, Mr. Casper is not in attendance here, but also I want to let the board know he did send a resignation letter dated April 8th. It was received in my office last Wednesday, the 13th. I received it the 14th. And clearly from that recommendation, he knew that he wasn't forcibly removed, so he was still putting things out there that he knew weren't true. So here's his resignation. Dear Office of the Mayor, regarding the above referenced pension board, enclosed, please find a copy of my April 4th, 2022 resignation that I directed to Chairman John Dargan. This concludes my volunteer service to the pension board. Technically, he sent this to the pension board chairman. It needs to come to me, but I will accept that as that it came to me. On May 4th, 2020, I had accepted an appointment to the Ethics Commission. At no time since has the Ethics Commission convened. My understanding is that my appointment ended on June 1st, 2021. Should the Office of the Mayor have a different understanding, please consider this letter notice of my resignation from Ethics Commission effective April 4th, 2022. So a couple things on that. One is, no, the Ethics Commission has never convened because there hasn't been a complaint. Secondly, when someone's term expires, they stay in that position unless the mayor chooses to remove them. If they don't, then they stay in that position. But I will accept both. I will accept his resignation from both. So I think it renders the rest of this discussion tonight moot. So I would recommend to the board that they table the discussion and table the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
In light of the resignations, I believe the matter before us is moot, and therefore move to table this motion.
Second.
Are there any comments on the tabling? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Abstain. So the motion is tabled.
Third-party fingerprinting for background checks.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Reardon?
I move to approve the service agreement with Accurate Biometrics to provide fingerprinting services for the village for 12 months with automatic renewals for additional 1-month terms until terminated for an amount not to exceed the board-approved budget amount for each fiscal year, and approve the village manager to execute said agreement subject to village review.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Reardon?
I actually do, just to make a point for Dennis and for whoever's going to implement this, of BIPA, B-I-P-A, the Biometric something act, which means there's a whole list of things you need to do with the employees or anybody that's getting this checked if it's an employee before you take any biometric data. So make sure we're in compliance with that before we implement this.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. Any non-scheduled visitors here? Nope. To speak? Anybody here to speak? Okay, great.
Board comments.
Trustee Compass.
So happy Passover, Ramadan Mubarak, and happy Easter. Definitely a very busy holiday season right now. Last weekend, we had a great Saturday. The village hosted the Easter Lucky Egg Hunt. It always feels like that event is over in the blink of an eye, given how fast those kids are. But I know it takes a lot of time to set up and coordinate for such a successful event. So thank you to all the staff responsible for the planning, the setup, and especially the cleanup. It was a very muddy day. The weather made for those very muddy conditions. I dare say the kids enjoyed it even more as a result of the mud, but even though their parents may not have been as thrilled for the future laundry. But speaking of weather, just before coming over here, driving to the village hall tonight, we had a bit of grapple precipitation. Prior to this year, I didn't even know that tiny, soft hail even had a name. The unusual weather of the past 24 hours, coupled with warm fronts that we hope were coming, Marissa, I'm looking at you, made me think about tornado season. So just a gentle reminder, it's always a good idea to make sure that you have 72 hours worth of water and other supplies. Take the time to discuss emergency planning and preparedness with your family. And with that, I hope everyone else has a great week.
Trustee Malani.
Well, thank you, Trustee Compass. That concludes my closing statements for tonight. Just a note on the Lucky Egg Hunt. I think we put out, approximately 12,000 eggs into the fields there, and I think it was about maybe 10 or 12 minutes before all of those eggs were picked up by the 1,000 people that were there. So it's definitely a sight to see. The kids enjoyed it, and thank you everybody that made it possible, and thank you everybody that was in attendance. So, and thank you everybody for coming here tonight.
Trustee Katsinas.
Thank you. We had a great addition to our Veterans Commission with Mr. Dubelbees. And the Veterans Commission is also having an information event on Saturday, April 23rd. It will take place at the Orland Park Civic Center right next door to us here. It will feature speakers and a lunch, and have a lot of support tables so veterans can view the tables. Maybe they find something that's interesting or something that's needy to them. So I think it's a great event, yet another event by our wonderful Veterans Commission. Thank you.
Trustee Radiszewski.
I hope everyone had a nice Easter, or Ramadan or Passover, whatever you celebrate. I hope that you enjoyed the weekend, and hopefully we will have some nice weather coming here sooner or later. It is kind of crazy weather lately. And to Sean's point about tornado season, also to sign up for the Code Red that we have. And that's it.
Trustee Healy.
I have two comments to make. The first one is that was a scary chart on interest rates and this inflation going on. Don't let anybody fool you. It's not due for Ukraine or anything like that. It's due to our government spending and all that's where it always rests with, that inflation. Last week, the government decided, in a little known thing, to allow drilling on federal lands, which I knew was which the Biden administration had stopped doing, but they've now quietly gone about and allowed that. So they're trying everything to stem the inflation, and it's almost like a panic. But just be very watchful about inflation is all we can say. My second comment is to congratulate Tom Dubbleby on his appointment, but I'm very saddened that it came at the death of Jim Harrison, who was on the Veterans Board.
Jim Thompson.
Pardon me?
Jim Thompson.
Thompson, okay, thank you, Thompson. I
that's what you meant.
For that. But he was, I've met Jim a number of times. He was one of those guys that held the flags and the guns at all these ceremonies. He was very involved in the community, a wonderful lawyer and husband, and he was very kind and nice to a new trustee about 3 years ago, and I'm always appreciative of that. Thanks.
Trustee Reardon.
Just congratulations to Hobbytown USA. Try to go check it out there. I've been there with one of my kids. I hope to get back there again soon. It's a great place, so congratulations to them.
Thank you. I do have some closing comments because last week, in case you missed it, the Illinois Department of Health indicated that it would no longer track case and test positivity rates. Also, it has been reported that Governor Pritzker knew and was being recommended to not do this since May of 2020. Instead, they will be using updated vaccination rates, the number of people admitted to the hospital with a COVID-19 diagnosis, where have you heard that before, and more detailed data on hospitalizations, including information about vaccination status, where have we heard that before. A reminder that since May of 2020, I have been pointing out that I was not paying attention to positivity rates because it was poor data and easily manipulated data. Instead, I was focusing on people hospitalized with COVID in suburban Cook County. The state never reported this information, as I pointed out then, but the Cook County Department of Public Health did until October of 2020. I repeatedly stated that this was the best information to use to make decisions. Here we are in 2022, and now we're suddenly using that information. As you recall, when new mandates and restaurant closures went into place around October of 2020, that's when the Cook County DPH stopped reporting this information and started reporting COVID-like illnesses, hospitalizations, which included all respiratory diseases, including the flu, were considered COVID. As I stated at the time, this change was used to deceive us and to control us and to justify a poor decision to attack restaurants yet again. Well, I should feel some vindication from this news. Instead, I'll be honest, I'm angry. I'm angry at the personal attacks that my family and I endured, particularly those by elected officials and by members of the press. The governor, the state, and the county clearly used deception to manipulate the public, damage businesses, and destroy lives and livelihoods. A new study from the National Bureau of Economic Research released a study last week in which Illinois received an F grade for its overall handling of COVID. Other states receiving Fs were California, New Mexico, New York, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia. We ranked 24th in deaths per capita, so in the middle of the pack, but only 43rd on keeping schools open and between 43rd and 47th on all economic indicators. We paid a really high price for finishing middle of the pack. As noted, the stupidity of these actions were pointed out by many, and the science never supported them. The first few weeks were understandable back then because information was sketchy. By early April 2020, this was not true, and several mayors signed several letters urging the governor to take a different course. If only he would have listened. In April of 2020, I said that the scariest part of the entire pandemic was how quickly people were willing to give up their rights. That is still what scares me the most. It is important that we, the American public, learn from this experience and never allow this to happen again. Not to us, not to our children. Do not give up your freedom so easily. On a lighter note, I want to thank Hobbytown. Love nothing better than models and radio-controlled airplanes, right after my own heart as a kid. And then additionally, the Easter, the Easter egg hunt was, as usual, absolute controlled chaos done in long, and then it's over in minutes. It's a lot of fun to watch those kids have such a good time, and I know our staff really enjoys it. Let's hope for some better weather over the next couple of weeks. And with that, we're not going to executive session today, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. We're adjourned.